All right. A warm welcome, everyone, to today's webinar on how to build an inclusive workplace. My name is Angelica Svensson, and I'm the Research and Policy Project Lead at AIMS Australia. Just before we get further, I'd like to alert everyone that this webinar will be recorded to allow for others who are unable to join us today to watch back and so we can share all the interesting knowledge that we've get to hear today. And so we have just started the recording. Before we get started with a very jam-packed 45 minutes, on behalf of AIMS Australia, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of these lands on which we work, live and meet today. We pay respects to their elders past and present and recognise their continuing connection to country, land, waters, sky and cultures past and present. I'm joining you all today from Naarm, Melbourne, the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Now, while we're here today, AIMS Australia, we're really pleased to host this webinar as part of the Multicultural Learning Partnership, which is a Victorian government funded initiative. This project is designed to highlight barriers and solutions through knowledge sharing of practices that really make a difference for getting people from multicultural and refugee backgrounds into safe and secure, sustainable jobs. And that might require changing attitudes and workplace practices. So this is the fifth webinar in a series, and welcome to those of you who might have attended some of our other webinars in the past. And it's really to continue this conversation with you all as critical stakeholders working with our multicultural communities. There will be other webinars following in the coming months, continuing this important conversation and keep sharing good practice that you all are doing out there already. There will be a toolkit as part of this project with practical strategies for you all to support you and your organisations working with multicultural job seekers or workers. And we are about to launch that toolkit in the coming weeks. So we will keep you all very posted and updated about the details as we progress that. Now, we are pleased to have two wonderful speakers with us today. Before I introduce them, I'd just like to point out how we're going to run this. So the presentation will go for roughly 30 minutes, 15 minutes each for the different speakers, and there will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put those in the chat, and we'll try and address them all at the end. Or if you just want to hold on to them till the end, that's fine, and we can just manage that as well. If we run out of time for questions, we'll take them on notice and we'll provide written answers. I'm sure the speakers are happy to do so after the session, and we'll send those out as part of the pack with the slides, which we will be sharing with you as well afterwards. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our two speakers, Liam Cross and Angela Brown. Liam is a Senior Inclusive Employment Officer at Wyndham City Council and is joining us today as a representative as well of the Opportunity Wyndham Network. Liam will be sharing insights of the development and use of employer co-designed toolkits, which support local inclusive employment practices. Angela is Manager Industry Capability and Development at the Level Crossing Removal Project, but comes from a background of leadership positions in adult education, private sector and government, with a current specialty in the rail and construction industries. And most recently, Angela has been working on diversity and inclusion initiatives with a particular focus on refugees, asylum seekers and young people. Now, that's enough from me. I'm very keen to hand over the microphone now to Liam to kick us off. So over to you, Liam.
Thank you, Angelica, and hi, everybody. Give me 1 second and I'll start sharing my screen. Is that sharing for everybody at the moment? Yep, perfect. So, hi everybody, my name's Liam Cross, and as we just introduced, I'm the Senior Inclusive Employment Officer at Wyndham City Council. I'm really grateful to be here today. I'll also flag at the start that I'm recovering from COVID at the moment, so please bear with me if I take a break to sip some of my tea or have a bit of brain fog lingering around there still. I know a lot of people would have had some sickness going around at the moment. Seems like it's everywhere. So I'm here to speak to you all very briefly about Opportunity Wyndham and some of the toolkits that we've developed through co-design with local employers to support local businesses to create more inclusive practices for some of their employees. I'll give a brief context into Opportunity Wyndham and then some of the toolkits that we have, some of which are available at the moment, and we'll send a link out for that in a moment at the end of this presentation, and others which are in the final stages of being developed and will be going live later this year. And I'll share some information about how you can find out more about those once they launch as well.
Liam,
So,
I'm sorry to just jump in. I might just, if possible, would you mind just perhaps sharing full screen? It might be easier for people to see the
yes,
slides.
sorry, it's sharing full screen on my end. Sorry, let me start that again.
That's okay. And if not, we'll go with what you had. That's all good.
It
And as I
is.
said, people will get the slides afterwards as well.
Is that sharing full screen now, or is that still the same as
It is. Yeah,
that's
no,
better?
perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Perfect. So, Opportunity Wyndham is a project that launched, I believe, in 2019 and is a partnership between business, community, local services, and government. And you'll see on the screen there some of the partners who are part of that partnership, including, of course, AIMS, who have invited us along today. Um, and what we do together is we work to address local barriers to employment in Wyndham and to try and provide inclusive and accessible jobs to local people. So really this initiative, which is funded by the Community Revitalisation Project from the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industries and Regions, is really all about trying to have a place-based approach to local employment support and involves our team working with a lot of different service providers and organisations in Wyndham, as well as with local employers and businesses and community to really try and connect and work together to address some of those larger systemic barriers to employment. And as part of that work, we have a priority commitment to young people, community members of newly arrived migrant and refugee background, and women in Wyndham. So that's some very brief context into Opportunity Wyndham and our partnership and some of our work. But what I'm here to talk about today are some of the toolkits that we've developed as part of that, particularly to try and make a more sustainable impact in this space when working with local employers. And if I go to the next slide. Yeah. So what I'll be talking about today are three of these toolkits, and I'll provide some more information about them as I go, which have been developed through co-design with local businesses and also with local community and service providers to try and find ways to provide free and sustainable and accessible to support to local businesses who are finding ways to create more inclusive workplaces. So I'll talk through the Inclusive Industries Toolkit, which is currently available on our website, the Industry Mentoring Toolkit, which has just been finalized and will be launching later this year. And I won't spend as much time on that. I'll briefly just talk about now the Employee Retention Toolkit, which has been developed with our Opportunity Wyndham partner, Wyndham Community and Education Centre, which is all about what that project has involved is piloting ways to piloting retention strategies with local businesses, working specifically with people from newly arrived migrant backgrounds working in businesses who are no longer able to qualify or eligible for other federally funded workplace supports, and how do local businesses go about retaining and upskilling those employees. That toolkit is about to be finalized, so I won't be talking about that today, but I just wanted to flag that that is also going to be part of our toolkit offering to launch later this year as well. In terms of the Inclusive Industries Toolkit, this is a toolkit that was launched in 2021 and is currently available. And what this is designed to do is to support local businesses in creating and implementing strategies that create inclusive workplaces. And what it includes are fact sheets, activities, and templates in 5 different sections, which were identified through a long period of co-design before I joined the team, in work with some consultants, but also with a lot of co-design with community and also local employers around getting started with diversity and inclusion, which includes sections around thinking about to support particularly a small to medium-sized business with things about how you might go about creating a diversity and inclusion strategy within your business. So it includes templates, resources, and guides to think about how a business might go about approaching that, as well as explaining why that might be really beneficial for them. Flexible work, why and how, and in particular thinking about flexible work as something which helps to create a more inclusive workplace. And we know, and I know a lot of you will know in your work, how beneficial that can be, and how for a lot of businesses, providing more flexible work options for employees can really help them to find and recruit more diverse talent within their workforce. Inclusion for leaders, which is all about building an inclusive workplace culture and specifically looking at leaders in an organization who might be able to enact change in that space. Understanding and managing unconscious bias with activities that groups and workplaces could undertake to identify some of that, and also about awareness and respect. And I just pulled up a couple of samples from this toolkit to briefly show you. So if we look at some of the fact sheets that the toolkit contains, and I know that will be quite small, but just to give you a glimpse of what is inside of it. So you'll see there that there's a fact sheet there. These are taken from the section which is all about awareness and respect. And you'll see here that this fact sheet is all about cultural awareness and respect, and trying to identify, give some context about the multiculturalism of Australia, and particularly with Wyndham being one of the most culturally diverse areas in Victoria, and really looking at some of the key barriers that people might be facing when they're finding their first job in particular. And then also giving some ideas or suggestions about what a workplace could do to create a more inclusive environment in that space. Also has a fact sheet there on intersectionality, which again is just designed to provide a brief overview to an employer, and is also something that an employer could use to share within their teams and within their organization to build some of that capacity and that cultural knowledge. The toolkit also includes some how-to guides, and I've just taken one example here about writing inclusive job advertisements and position descriptions. And you'll see that it includes some information about why that might be really, really important, and then also gives some really key specific examples about the types of language which might be less inclusive in a job advertisement, and compares that with some language that might be more inclusive as well. I'm going to jump now to the industry mentoring toolkit, and I'll spend the rest of my time speaking about this toolkit. Uh, this toolkit has been developed, within the final stages of development, and will be launching later this year. And this toolkit has really responded to needs, again, directly designed with and for local businesses in Wyndham. Our team undertook a project called the Priority Workforce Project last year, ending a couple of weeks ago this year, which was funded by Jobs Victoria, which involved us going out and engaging with local businesses in Wyndham to try and create roles for entry, particularly focusing on entry-level roles, so people facing structural barriers to employment. And through that project, we were undertaking co-design with local employers in a couple of key industries. And in those conversations, we were talking to those employers, or trying to better understand what were some of the supports that they saw specifically for people who were starting these new roles, and also just in general within their organizations, what some of the gaps were that they saw for support. And one of the key things that came out through that co-design, one was that a lot of times within organizations, and particularly smaller to medium-sized businesses, a lot of times employees would be promoted into leadership positions, but not really have access to training to be able to support other staff members once they're in those leadership positions. And also, in particular, that sometimes it was also really challenging for employers to be able to provide training to those staff members before they stepped into a leadership position as well. And the other thing was that it can be really tricky, or could be really challenging, for employers to create a really smooth, welcoming, and inclusive onboarding experience for new personnel, especially if those were new employees who were newer to the Australian workforce, or might have faced some other challenges or barriers as well. So from that project, which involved implementing some of that with local employers, we then were able to turn some of those findings into this sustainable resource, which is developed into this industry mentoring toolkit, which has been designed to build capacity and onboard new staff, and to upskill existing personnel through mentoring. And the idea behind this being that with this toolkit, any business would be able to pick up and using the resources within this toolkit to independently run a mentoring program within their own organization. So this toolkit includes guides, resources, and activities in 3 different sections. One section is all about business resources, which are really resources which are aimed specifically at a business. And I'll talk through some examples in a second. but even includes a business case and guide specifically to show to a business, one, why this would be a really beneficial program for them to implement, what are the benefits of mentoring for them, their staff, and mentees, but also provides all the tools that a business would need to implement this mentoring program, including a people and performance guide designed specifically for a people and performance team within a business, which goes through all the details of what implementing this might look like, including things like templates of emails that could be sent out across a company to launch a mentoring program that a business could then just tweak, information about how you might match mentors and mentees, and even what that might look like if you're implementing a mentoring program on a smaller scale compared to a larger scale. The guide or the toolkit then includes some mentor resources, which I'll talk through in a second, which includes training for potential mentors, as well as facilitated session resources. So that if a mentor and mentee were meeting to provide some prompts and to guide that discussion, as well as resources specifically for a mentee who is joining a mentoring program as well. I'll talk through some examples of that now. Um, these screenshots are taken from the business case, and you'll see there on the left that just outlines again some of those business resources, mentor resources, and mentee resources that are part of the toolkit in more detail. You'll see on the right there, this is part of, again, that business case, thinking about a business to think about what's in this for them, why it might be beneficial for them to implement a mentoring program. And you'll see there that we've seen for a business that some of the key benefits include it boosts employee engagement, it fosters continuous learning, it creates higher performing teams, and it reduces employee turnover. We have there also the benefits for mentors. Why would this be beneficial for a mentor to sign up for this type of program? Which includes that they'll be able to share their expertise, they'll develop leadership skills, encourage reflection, and also learn from mentees. And then we have there for mentees, what are the benefits for them, which include things around building skills and knowledge, creating a safe space to ask questions, and being able to engage in personalized supports as well. If I look here briefly onto some of the resources for the mentors as part of that mentor package, what the toolkit contains as well are 4 modules of training, which are provided to a business so that a business could independently implement this training themselves for their staff members. But also, we have piloted earlier this year facilitating some of this training ourselves. So we had a group of local businesses who were interested in these resources, and we piloted facilitating this training, and that was really successful. We had pretty strong engagement and really fantastic feedback from that pilot of having people from different businesses together, bringing them into the room, and us facilitating some of this mentoring training really helped create some really diverse perspectives when you had businesses and employees, particularly from different sectors and in different roles in businesses, some who were currently in leadership positions, some who were newer to leadership positions, and others who were just identified by staff members within their team as an emerging leader. And we found that was really, really beneficial. And so this is just screenshots from 2 of the modules of training. One of the modules is about an introduction to mentoring, where we talk about that a mentor is not expected to have all the answers to a question, but can be expected to reach out to their networks to find relevant information. Or on module 2, which is all about creating safe and inclusive spaces, one of the activities we use is to encourage mentors to reflect on their own experiences of diversity using this tool called a diversity wheel. And that includes different elements of diversity coming from race, ethnicity, nationality, social and economic background, education, etc. And we found that encouraging mentors to reflect on their own personal experiences of diversity and what that's meant for them really helped them to think about the connections that they could make with mentees and other people in their teams around what that experience has been like for themselves as well. And finally, where I think I'm running over time, in terms of the mentee resources, so for example, these are just some screenshots from the guide that we provide to mentees, which has some information about what they might do to make the most out of a mentoring opportunity. Sorry, not that we provide to mentees, that we provide to businesses and encourage them to provide to mentees as part of implementing this. And finally, it also includes some extra information around what are the basic employee rights And particularly thinking that with this resource, we're thinking about people who, or mentees who might be newer to a business and also newer to a workplace as well, or newer to Australian workplaces, and really making sure that we're providing another opportunity for them to identify some of their basic employee rights, and just as importantly, other places where they can find extra information and extra resources about that as well. I believe that's my time. So thank you so much for that. I'll send some links in the chat in a second, and I know we have the time for Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, please reach out, but I'll send a link to our website where you can access the Inclusive Industries Toolkit as well as a link to a place where you can express your interest if you'd like to be notified once the other toolkits launch later this year. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Liam. That was really interesting to hear about how you've co-designed all these toolkits with local businesses and really making sure that it's relevant to the users of the toolkits. So thank you. And yes, everyone, if you've got questions for Liam directly, please put them in the chat and we'll try and get to those at the end. Now I will hand over to our second speaker, Angela, who will talk us through one example of an initiative, good practice, that really showcases how we can better support refugee job seekers. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Angelica, and apologies to everyone for another person recovering from COVID, but hopefully my voice will hold out. So thanks for joining me today. My name's Angela Brown. I'm the Manager of Industry Capability and Development at Level Crossing Removal Project, and I'm going to talk to you today about a specific program that we run called the EPIC program, that focuses very specifically on creating inclusive pathways into employment for engineers from refugee and asylum seeker backgrounds. Before I move into that, I'd also like to briefly acknowledge the Bunurong people of Naarm and the Kulin Nations, and that's the lands to which I come to today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. So I'd like to give you a bit of a brief overview of EPIC so you know what I'm talking about. Now, I do work in the state government, so we love a good acronym. EPIC stands for oh my gosh, can't even get my own acronym right. Engineering Pathways Industry Cadetship. And in a nutshell, what the program does is it's an 18-month work experience period. So it's an 18-month contract offered to participants. And they are engineers from overseas qualified engineers from refugee and asylum seeker backgrounds. Over the 18 months, they'll conduct a full-time work, and they will also undertake for 12 months of the 18 months part-time study through Swinburne University of Technology, and they study a qualification that we actually built bespoke with Swinburne directly to make sure that it met the needs of the cohort who were entering industry. And so it's called the Graduate Certificate of Infrastructure Engineering Management. So it's quite a unique program in that we've really built it from the ground up, and it's very much designed for the cohort in which we've developed it for. And certainly we engaged in a lot of co-design processes. And look, we're very, very fortunate we've been able to run this program because there are plenty of government policies that enable us to incentivise participation. So it's quite unique, and it's something that's a little hard to replicate. But what I'd like to focus on today is just some of the support structures that we've implemented, and also some elements of learning that we've gained out of the process. I'm going to let you know right now that I am no expert in this space, so I'm really going to stick very strictly to what I've learned through running the program and from, dealing with lots of the partners that we collaborate with, which extends over community service providers, higher education, government, employers, rail operators, tier 1 construction firms, industry bodies like Engineers Australia, and all kinds of people. So that's really the lens that I'm casting over this today. So firstly, I just want to note why we designed the program the way we did. So the program was very specifically focusing on 2 barriers that overseas qualified engineers face in employment in Victoria and around Australia. And it's very much being rejected due to a lack of local work experience, or holding a lack of not having a local degree, or having an overseas degree that is not recognised. So EPIC was designed very specifically to overcome both barriers. So the 18 months of extended work experience enabled a long period of time to invest in a cadet and ensure that they could build relationships, build those real key skills that they need for long-term careers in construction and rail, and also ensure that they have the opportunity to study a local qualification that's a postgraduate qualification that builds on top of their overseas experience and learning. So everything was done by design, and also obviously to ensure we could align ourselves with government policies to incentivise participation and make it as, I guess, enticing as possible for employers to take part. So some of the things that we've done very quickly, I won't go through all of them, could talk forever, but mainly since 2020 when we started the program, and I took a bit of a chance on setting up a program after I had a conversation with an engineer in an Uber. True story. That is exactly how I came up with the program. Since 2020, we've employed 70 engineers through the program. We have 50 who have taken part in the educational process from start to finish, and 47 of those have completed, and 92% of those people have secured further employment post-program. So at least one thing I can say is that so far the approach seems to work, and it is creating those longer-term pathways that we really hope to see, instead of just a short-term or piecemeal work. So I'm really excited to say that we will be running another EPIC, and that will be running in October 2024 will be the start. And I'm very fortunate to have AIMS Australia's support with finding talent and supporting those talent as they apply and hopefully get through to secure a place in the program. And we're right in the heart of it right now. We're starting testing centres next week. Busy girl. So quickly, some of the things that we do to ensure the best success. Obviously, the most important thing is ensure support. We certainly don't want to have a program where we encourage people into employment and then just leave them out high and dry. Construction and rail as well. They can be industries that can be challenging for people who have English as a second language or third language, but also just a challenging and stressful environment in general. And so we were very eager to make sure that we provided lots of support to people, and not just at the beginning, but over an extended period of time to ensure their long-term success. So some of the support structures that we have built into the program, obviously we have a dedicated management team. So we have a team of 3, and the 3 of us manage the program, and we have very hands-on. Everything from planning to stakeholder engagement to recruitment to, during the program, liaison with education, post-program support, we do it all. And then that way we can ensure we use our knowledge and also build relationships with cadets so they trust us, and we can make sure that we can manage any issues as they arise. And that's really, really important. I think it's a consistency of that team that delivers that. Candidates, we ask to connect. We don't have an open recruitment process. We ask them to connect with our program through community service providers. And obviously there's a number of benefits to that. And part of that is to ensure that they are well supported in applying. Sometimes applying for jobs is a big barrier in itself. We ask a lot of people who apply for the program. And so those partners, including AIMS, really go out of their way to support candidates. Everything from making sure that they have the right clothing sometimes to ensuring they can apply for the jobs and have support in if they need to ensure they get their documents sorted, right through to interview skills and techniques. So I think that's a really important part, is the pre-recruitment support to make sure that everyone who has the eligibility to apply can apply. Once people have secured a job, and it is a competitive process, we've had over 100 people apply for the current program. We engage career seekers, and career seekers obviously have a lot of expertise in mid-career professionals from refugee backgrounds. They particularly run an internship based on that. So we leverage their best practice and really well-informed approach to support our cadets. And that includes a working with refugees briefing that supervisors undertake, And they also conduct a 3-month check-in process over the course of the first 3 months of the program, and that's with the manager, the cadet, and themselves. And that's to ensure they can set goals, set career goals, set workplace goals, and also put out any fires that might be happening. And it helps to build that relationship between manager and cadet. When the cadets start, we run a 2-week induction program. We make sure they have all the required training that they need to take part. But we also, career seekers deliver their standard 3-day workplace readiness training for our cadets to ensure that they have the best possible understanding of how to assimilate early and well into their new workplaces. And that's informed from a construction perspective as well. We do contextualise it and from that perspective. Then post-career seeker support, we have a mentoring program, and that's provided by an Aboriginal business called Nurdubarji Education. And that goes, at this stage, it goes for the entirety of the program. And that ensures that cadets have access to a mentor who is not their supervisor and ideally not part of their employer or employer group. Someone who they can bounce confidential advice, build a trusted relationship with, and also help them with the educational studies in some cases. So we're very fortunate we get access to a whole bunch of energised, motivated, high-level professionals who work in engineering across construction and rail, and they volunteer to be our mentors. So we also find that it helps with a real, I guess, a cultural cohesion as well, because our mentors are advocates for our program and help us to build those broad relationships and the visibility of our program. And of course, when the cadets undertake their graduate certificate, Swinburne provide a raft of additional support to ensure that they are successful in their graduate certificate studies, including an academic English program, which goes for 6 weeks prior to the start of the qualification. So we build lots and lots of support in, and of course, our team always have our phones on and ready to answer any questions from cadets. So we also personally support as well. So where do we support? We support pre-program, as I've mentioned, and that's where the community partners come in and our team. From day one, they have the 2-week induction program to get additional learning to get them ready for the workplace. From day one, they meet their mentors and they start the mentoring program that goes over the 18 months. From the 2-week point onwards, they start their 3-month check-in process with career seekers, and then at 5 months, they start their academic English language support. We also run networking events for our cadets as well to ensure that they build a great, strong network, because they often get very familiar with each other, and we find that the cadet experience, the cohort experience, is really important to their success as well. So they've got additional support outside of their employer. They have a bunch of new friends. So some of the things that we've learned over EPIC, I'll keep this very quick. Well, for starters, I don't think I need to, I think I'm preaching to the converted here that your recruitment processes are really, really important for them to be inclusive. We found that reliance on the resume and abiding by what's on the resume as a letter of the law is can be really counterproductive to getting the best candidates. We screen for our recruitment through motivational questions as an initial stage. The resume is a part of it, but it's not the key deciding factor. We don't make any decisions to get into the program based solely on a resume. And we've found that has been really helpful for us. We also run a recruitment centre where all of the engineers undertake activities together in small groups, so we can see the skills that we really want them to demonstrate, which is teamwork, communication, and their ability to present. But it also allows us to see what they're like working with others with their English language, and it also allows us to see additional support they need. So I think that tailoring the recruitment is a really important part of success for the program. Obviously, supporting the managers, and we've spoken about that already. Supporting the managers to support the person is really the key. Managers, for us, we've found that sometimes they, despite our best efforts, they don't have the best visibility of the program outputs. And so we try very, very hard to engage with them, provide them separate training, but also we don't make an assumption that they've even met a refugee or asylum seeker person before, or people from those backgrounds. And so we really try and allow them the freedom to explore relationships with their cadets and feel that they have the freedom to ask questions. We're safe with the cadet. Cadets in that way often become unofficial ambassadors, which is something that they relish. We don't ask them to do it, but they really relish that opportunity. And of course, as I've just mentioned here, brief everyone, over-communicate to everybody, tell the entire business, tell everybody. I mean, certainly I'm from a government perspective, but our employers are often private business, and they can be big, large beasts. We produce lots of support material and collateral, and we have lots of briefings, lots of meetings, too much. But it's really, really important to make sure that we capture as many people as we possibly can so they can understand the intent of the program, the mechanics, and then buy in their support, which obviously is really key for our success. I think that just about covers, oh yes, I just very quickly want to mention the mentoring program has been a really important part of our success. The mentoring program just enables people to build confidential, trust-based relationships with high-level professionals who really have a lot of gravitas and good information and advice to offer. And we find that the central point of our mentoring program, the person who runs it from Nerdubaji Education, she's also a very warm and caring individual, and cadets just reach out to chat sometimes. And so we find that that additional hotline to somebody and someone who's consistently there is just really important. So I'm just like to enhance what Liam said around mentoring programs. If you have the opportunity to set one up, I strongly advise you do, but I'd also consider confidentiality and trust as being two key elements of setting that up. And lastly, I just want to mention that for us, it's been about a process of humanising our cohort. I hate using that word, but it gets the point across. If we have a whole business of people who believe they've never met a person from a refugee or asylum seeker background before, we need to remove that wording and create relationships where they focus on their humanity and the people that they are and their stories and their experiences and their skills they bring. So meeting face-to-face is really, really important, and we try and emphasise that. So look, that's about it from me. I've spoken as quickly as I possibly can, but just when you get these slides later, you'll notice that the link is there if you want to see more about the program. We've been on the news twice. So if you want to see those stories, because they're really nice, you are welcome to scan the QR codes and they will take you to the news stories that we've run for EPIC. And that's it from me. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Angela. Really insightful, and it's so good to hear that there are initiatives out there that are doing so well. I was really impressed to see the employment